بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings, the eternal greetings of Islam be with you all. Those who are local, those who are out of state, those who are worldwide, Jazakumullahu khairan for joining us. Tonight's lesson, as is well known, will be on Al-Lu'lu wal Marjan فيما اتفق عليه الشيخان. The ahadith compiled from Al-Bukhari and Muslim from Sheikh Muhammad Fawad Abdul Baqi. We're still in Kitab al-Buyu', the book of sales, the book of contracts, purchases, bargains, hustling, whatever you want to write, however you wish to word it, giving something, taking something that you want or need, bartering, trading, right? The need, the buyer, the consumer, the supply, the demand, etc. What's lawful, what's unlawful, what is disliked, what is unlawful according to all of the scholars of Islam by consensus, what is unlawful even though there's difference of opinion but it's the strongest view, so on and so forth. All right. So we're coming up on hadith number, or we're on hadith number 982, excuse me. The 13th chapter states, باب النهي عن بيع الثمار قبل بدو صلاحها بغير شرط القطع. Listen to this. It says, باب النهي عن بيع الثمار قبل بدو صلاحها بغير شرط القطع. Chapter 13 says it is forbidden to sell fruits till their benefit is evident. But it doesn't necessarily, or it's missing some things in Arabic. In Arabic it says بغير شرط القطع. That it's impermissible to do that unless the immediate cutting down of those fruits is stipulated. So this is an example among many of mistranslations or defective or at best short translations. And obviously that condition or that stipulation changes the whole entire ruling. So in English it says it is forbidden to sell fruits till their benefit is evident. Correct? And obviously that chapter heading is absolute. You cannot sell, you cannot buy fruits until, etc., etc., etc. But in Arabic it gives a stipulation. بغير شرط القطع. Unless you stipulate that I'll cut them down immediately. So here you have some bananas, some apricots, some apples, whatever the fruit may be. And they aren't fully ripened. They aren't fully yellow or red or green, whatever the color they're supposed to be. And I wish to purchase them. They're in the trees, they're in the orchid, etc. So the chapter heading in English states that it's unlawful to do it, period. But in Arabic, it states unless there's what? With that stipulation. So it says the impermissibility of doing this, it says the prohibition, an-nahi, of selling those types of fruits without the condition of cutting them down. So this is a prime example of how you, the English reader, are never ever going to get the full juicy benefit without the Arabic language. It's impossible. You can learn, you can benefit, you can become studious. No doubt about that. I've said this many times before. Some people have made comments about me saying this behind my back. Before, I, to this very day, read, enjoy, and benefit from reading English. Many brothers say, oh, once you go overseas, I burnt all my English books. I threw them all away. I can't even read English anymore. Nah, we don't agree with that. No matter how long you study, you're always going to need to refresh. And you're always going to need to polish. And you're always going to need to know the grammar and the eloquence, let alone just a benefit. If you're a real reader and if you're a bookworm. If I could read Vietnamese, if I could read Swahili, I would. If I knew those languages, if a book was presented to me. You understand? But trying to make a point here is that you can benefit in English. We don't go to neither of the two extremes. you can't learn nothing, you can't benefit anything unless you read it in Arabic. We don't agree with that. That's not true. There's a ton of information out there in English. There are many good translations to many books in English. You can be studious in English, but there's a ceiling to your benefit. You understand? Like they say about jets and planes, it has a what? It can't go any higher. And if you force the plane to go higher, it's going to fail, it's going to stall, you're going to crash. So you can't get but so sharp in English. Secondly, oftentimes, not all the times, but oftentimes you can be misled, or you can get something really wrong in English. And there's a need to study books with scholars and students of knowledge, teachers in Arabic, let alone in what? In English. And of course, there's a long discussion on translators, native speakers, ESL, English as a second language, right? How accurate are the translations, Aqidah mistakes in translations, etc. etc. What's important is, just as an example in front of our faces right there, right here, it's not just propaganda, is that we can all agree you can't get the full benefit in English. And that's like anything else in life. You can't get to the end of the Spanish Inquisition without knowing Spanish and Portuguese. You can't get to the end of the French Revolution unless you know what? It's just how it is. But you can learn a lot of it in English, but you don't have access to all of the info, right? Wallahu ta'ala alam. So therefore, this is one of the rulings of buying and selling, and it is another type of impermissible transaction pertaining to agriculture, produce, and that is, if I have a date palm farm, or an apple orchard, or apricot orchard, or I sell papayas or mangoes, whatever I'm selling, coconuts, whatever it may be, I am prohibited from selling those fruits before they are fully ripened and developed, unless the buyer stipulates, or it is stipulated that he will purchase those fruits and immediately cut them down and take them with him. Everybody understand? Everybody clear on this? So that's the simplification of the fiqh ruling. The simplification of the what? Of the fiqh ruling. Now, this is an ancient ruling coming from an ancient text, explained by ancient scholars. How do we apply this to 2023? When you go to the supermarket and you wish to buy bananas, Dole or Chiquita, right? What else? What are the other brands of the bananas? The famous ones when we were growing up. Definitely Dole, remember? Those are the two, Bukhari Muslim, back in the day, right? Of course. Brother told, I can't say this on the live stream. He said everything's organic in Guyana. Even, that's what we're going to say. This was Masjid Abidin. This was we eating iftar. And this was way back in the day before they made the new building. We were sitting in a lot. It's me and two Guyanese brothers, so eating food and stuff. He said, yeah, you take the shake Guyana, you know, blah, 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 blah. He said, everything is organic Guyana. Even what? Everything. Nothing is fake there, right? Alhamdulillah, you have all types of countries in Central, South America, let alone the Caribbean or the Caribbean, depending on your mode of recitation, that are well known for their fruits and their vegetables. And that's a long story. We don't want to get political or politically incorrect with regards to why are so many nations around the world relatively poor or struggling and have so many natural resources. It really is unbelievable. Coffee alone, bananas, sugar, rice, gold, and the list goes on, rich with natural resources, and how those countries have been and are exploited and sold out by a few wealthy families, all right? And the Western powers just dig and scoop and take. But we're not here to talk about that right now. Al-Muhim, you go to the supermarket, you want some bananas, and the bananas are what? Green. Is it lawful for you to buy those fruits? Is this ruling that? Or is it talking about on a larger scale? Buying it right from the supplier, right from the one who grows it, the farmer. All right, you buy some apples, some Honey Crisps, right? You know, and they're green. They're not fully red. Is it lawful for you to buy those Honey Crisps?
No, at the store?
At the supermarket, not the farm.
It's lawful.
It's lawful. But it clearly says you can't buy fruits until they're what?
Right.
Unless they pick and take them.
Allah Akbar. There is somewhat
Yeah.
detail with regards to the farm versus the fruit being presented to you. Let alone the fact that, as we'll read inshallah ta'ala, hopefully, there are different instances in which there are exceptions to this rule. And we'll get there, inshallah ta'ala. And of course, also, hopefully we'll have enough time to read. There's a difference. Every fruit is different. Some fruit, you can't get it after it's ripened because it'll spoil really quickly. Some fruit with a little bit of green, it's supposed to be like that. How many species of mangoes are there? Anybody know?
A lot.
How many? Ali, take a guess.
More than 5.
More than 5.
72.
72. What's the most popular mango commercially?
Commercial?
The most commercially popular mango that most people drink or eat or whatever. Go ahead, Abdul Hakim. Don't stutter. Don't hesitate.
I don't know. Just take it as deep. Actually.
Yeah, there's one that's like the top one.
The Japanese.
I think it's the Pakistani mango, right?
Getting a little close. Getting a little close. Yeah, I think give or take. When we politically incorrect. What's the name of it though? Al-Muhim. Let's move forward. All right. So when you go to the supermarket and the fruit isn't fully ripe or ripened or whatever, is that the same ruling as this chapter heading? All right. So that's the chapter heading. That's the explanation of the chapter heading. And as we have explained, the importance of understanding and breaking down and tackling the chapter heading before you get into the hadith, the style of the ancient muhaddithin. All right. Hadith 982. حديث عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن بيع الثمار حتى يبدو صلاحها نهى البائع والمبتاع. انتبه. حديث جابر رضي الله عنه قال نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيع الثمر حتى يطيب ولا يباع شيء منه إلا بالدينار والدرهم إلا العرايا. حديث ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أنه قال نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن بيع النخل حتى يأكل أو يؤكل وحتى يوزن. قيل له وما يوزن؟ قال رجل عنده حتى يحرز. So the first hadith, hadith 982, is narrated by Abdullah bin Umar, may Allah be pleased with them both. Allah's Messenger ﷺ forbade the sale of fruits till their benefits are evident. He forbade both the seller and the buyer, as we mentioned. The seller what? And the buyer. Hadith 983, excuse me, is narrated by Jabir radiallahu anhuma. The Prophet ﷺ forbade the selling of fruits unless they get ripe. And none of them should be sold except for dinar or dirham. Except the araya trees, states here, the dates of which could be sold for dates. Hadith 984 is narrated Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. The Prophet ﷺ forbade the sale of dates till they were fit for eating and could be weighed. I asked him, what is to be weighed as the dates are on trees, in parentheses? A man sitting by Ibn Abbas said, it means till they are cut and stored. So 3 hadiths, all 3 of them are authentic, Bukhari, Muslim, and all 3 of them give the general meaning of the prohibition with regards to buying, selling, benefiting from certain fruits until a specific period of time, until a specific condition, a specific situation. And that is that these fruits can be obtained, and they're in a good state, and inshallah ta'ala nothing will happen to them which will cause a man to lose his wealth and to be cheated out of his contract. And the seller saying, well, you picked them before they were ripe, they're not ripening. That's your fault. You picked up the green apple. I never told you to buy it. It's done. All sales are what? There's no khiyar. Like we took in the previous chapters, right? There's no what? There's no khiyar. You had no business buying the bananas before they were yellow. The plantain, the mango, whatever the case may be. Everyone understand this? And this is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as it states in that narration, he forbade what? The buyer and the seller. Don't play yourself. And there's no guarantee that the fruit is going to fully develop. You ever buy a pineapple? You put it in the kitchen on the counter. You're waiting for it to start smelling. You're waiting for the natural smell, gnats to come. You know, they like the fresh fruit. And it sits there 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. The next thing you know, the pineapple isn't any softer and it doesn't smell any sweeter. You're like, man, I'm getting impatient. You cut it open, whatever. You eat it and it don't taste like nothing. Because it never what? It never was fully ripened. It was bought prematurely, and whether it was a bad batch, a bad pineapple, it just never what? You get the point? You understand? So therefore, the buyer and the seller are prohibited from this. And from the wisdoms behind this is preventing a Muslim's wealth being squandered and a Muslim from being cheated, or a non-Muslim, for the fact of the matter. The buyer, the consumer, right? All right, طيب, خير inshallah. Also, we see in these ahadith some issues which we won't jump the gun to with regards to riba and what riba means and the different types of riba. The main type of riba that most of us know about, most of us only know about one type of riba, and that's the riba that pertains to debt. The riba that pertains to what? Debt. And another type of riba is the riba which pertains to bartering, trading. The riba that pertains to debt is clear. Riba al-fadl and riba al-nasi'ah. The riba that pertains to debt, that's called nasi'ah. Not like nasiha, but nasi'ah. Nasi'ah. And that is the house, the mortgage, the leasing, whatever the case may be. You borrow 500, you pay me back 550. You pay me back 6,000, whatever the interest or rate. And that's a long discussion of interest versus usury. Al-Muhim. That's the main type of riba that most of us know about. But another type of riba, and one may possibly say the main type, Allahu Alam, but for sure it's the other type, which is called riba al-fadl. Fadl. Fa, dad, lam, like fadlullahi. Fadl. Riba al-fadl. And that is the riba that pertains to switching hands with products. I have a pound of dates for 2 pounds of salt. I have 2 pounds of salt for a silver coin, a shilling, right? Salt, dates, raisin, barley, things that are what? Goods that are exchanged. Is it lawful for me to buy the salt with the silver? Is it lawful for me to buy the dates with another commodity? Or do I have to use silver or gold, etc.? We're not going to get into that just yet. That's going to come though, inshallah ta'ala. So that's called riba al-fadli. And every student of knowledge should know this. And every Muslim should also know this. But however, things make it even more, or they may get stickier once you start learning these things and you realize, wait a second, how are things bought and sold and purchased in the world? Currency exchanged. Is that riba? Exchanging dollars for reals? So on and so forth. All right, the details of that, so on and so forth. Al-Muhim, with regards to the dates from the palm trees, they're not to be sold unless they can be weighed, unless they're counted, so on and so forth. All right, khairan inshallah ta'ala. All right. So Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, that's the simplification of the hadiths. Step 2, done. And step 3 is the sharh, classical sharh, to see what the ulama have said, what they've explained, what they've passed down. So inshallah ta'ala, you get a good system here, right? You get an explanation, a commentary, simplification of the chapter heading. You guys with me? Then you get the reading, the proper pronunciation of the hadiths, which allows you to memorize them. And then you get a simple, basic explanation of the actual hadiths. Now we go step 3 to the classical texts. Everyone understand this? Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, he explains different issues in Sahih Muslim. He says, أما أحكام الباب فإن باع الثمرة قبل بدو صلاحها بالشرط القطعي صح بالإجماع. He says, as far as the rulings of this chapter in Sahih Muslim, if a person buys fruits before their benefit, before it's evident that they're ripe and fresh, with the condition of him cutting them down and taking them qata, then it's lawful to make this type of sale, this bargain, according to all of the scholars, consensus. Now, one may say, how can they make consensus when the text clearly states you can't do it? The text clearly states what? Don't do it. And no, he says it's lawful if the stipulation is made that there will be cut and taken. He says the scholars have agreed upon the fact that that's permissible. And that's an error that highlights and amplifies the lacking translation. All right? So that's point number one. So there are exceptions to this. And that's the first exception. بشرط إيش؟ القطع. Right, clear on that? All right, he then says, قال أصحابنا ولو شرط القطع ثم لم يقطع فالبيع صحيح ويلزمه البائع بالقطع. Our ashab, our proponents, the Shafi'i scholars, they say, if the buyer pre-stipulates that he'll cut down the fruit, or the fruit will be cut, and then it's not cut, the contract will be valid. And the seller would have to provide the goods when they're cut. فإن تراضيا على إبقائه جاز وإن باعها بشرط التبقية فالبيع باطل بالإجماع. He says if the buyer and the seller are pleased على إبقائه, for them to stay and to sit there, جاز, it will be lawful. When باعها بشرط التبقية, and if he buys them or sells them with the condition that they'll stay there, then it's باطل according to consensus. لأنه ربما تلفت الثمرة قبل إدراكها, because the fruits may spoil, they may go bad before a person can get them. فيكون البائع قد أكل مال أخيه بالباطل. He says because the seller would have then consumed his brother's wealth unlawfully, unjustly. وأما إذا شرط القطع فقد انتفى هذا الضرر. As far as if he stipulates that they will be cut, then there's no harm, so there's no problem with it. No, he says, when باعها مطلقا بلا شرط فمذهبنا ومذهب جمهور العلماء أن البيع باطل لإطلاق هذه الأحاديث. As far as if he sells them without no condition, then it's batil. And this is the view of the Shafi'i school and the view of most, but not all of the scholars. Most of them. And he says it's batil because of these hadiths. And the only reason why we excluded the issue of it being permissible if they're going to be cut and taken down, because of ijma'. فَخَصَّصْنَا الْأَحَادِيثَ بِالْإِجْمَاعِ. So we have specified the rulings from the hadiths because of the ijma'. I.e., if there was no ijma' upon that exception, it would also be batil. It would also be unlawful. Proving that there are things that can take the ruling away from its default position. The default position is whatever is mentioned in the evidences, the proofs. This ayah clearly says, don't wear yellow. This hadith clearly says, don't wear yellow. If we didn't have anything else, we would say it's unlawful what? To wear yellow. But for argument's sake, everybody in New York City agrees nothing is wrong with wearing yellow. Yellow is a masculine color, it's not a feminine color. But if we didn't have that consensus, then we say according to New York style would be what? Can't wear yellow. Everybody clear on this? So the hadith clearly state, don't do it. Don't do it. And the hadiths don't give an exception. The hadiths don't what? They don't give an exception. Why and how has he made an exception? Have those scholars made an exception? He says that the scholars unanimously agree that that exception is not included in the impermissibility. Well, you clear on this, guys? All right, moving forward. No, we don't have it all the time. He then says, وإنما صححناه بشرط القطع للإجماع فخصصنا الأحاديث بالإجماع فيما إذا شرط القطع ولأن العادة في الثمار الإبقاء فصار كالمشروط. وأما إذا بيعت الثمرة بعد بدو الصلاح فيجوز بيعها مطلقا وبشرط القطع وبشرط التبقية لمفهوم هذه الأحاديث لأن ما بعد الغاية يخالف ما قبلها إذا لم يكن من جنسها ولأن الغالب فيها السلامة بخلاف ما قبل الصلاح etc. And then he goes on to explain other issues with regards to these rulings before and during. All right, now let's take another fa'idah from another book, highly beneficial book. I don't think we've ever spoken on this book before. It's a book I would definitely recommend for every student of knowledge to have. And of course, if someone's a scholar, an imam of a masjid, a resident scholar, whatever, he should have this in his library as well. And it is the book which is called Al-Mawsu'ah Al-Fiqhiyya. It's a fiqh encyclopedia. And there are many encyclopedias of fiqh. This is a fiqh encyclopedia that was sponsored by the Kuwaiti government. And if my poor memory serves me correctly, it's over 40 volumes, as you can see up there. Maybe 42 volumes to be exact. Alhamdulillah, I got the book for free. We were in Ottawa some years back. It was really, 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 really cold that night. Brother had invited us over his house, and he had a friend. I believe the friend was from Kuwait. If not Kuwait, then Saudi. I think he was Kuwaiti. He introduced him or us to him. We were on a dawah trip, and he said, I have several cases of the book. Does anybody want a book? I said, of course, I'll take the book. 42 volumes for free? No one but a fool would turn that down. And of course, we would benefit from this book when we were in Medina, in the library. I would, from time to time, read it, open it up, and study it, like an English encyclopedia. Al-Muhim, this is a tremendous work. There's no question about that. And it gives you all of these different definitions, fiqh issues, rulings, consensus, difference of opinion, alphabetically, or in alphabetical order, like an encyclopedia, Britannica, or whatever the case may be, a world book, right? So here we're reading on from volume 9, page 188. And before that, obviously, bay' manhi anhu, all right, dealing with different types of bay', right? Different types of sales and bargains and contracts. بيع اللحم بحيوان من جنسه لا يستجيز جمهور الفقهاء بيع اللحم بحيوان من جنسه كلحم شاة بشاة حية وذلك للنهي عن بيع اللحم بالحيوان في الحديث المتقدم كما يقول الشافعية ولأنه مال ربوي. All right, just an example. He talks about selling meat with a live animal of the same type of meat. So here you have some lamb or some lamb or some mutton, whatever the case may be, and you're selling it for a sheep, right? Can you sell steak, beef for a cow? Not another type of animal, but it's the same type of animal. One is slaughtered, cut up, and here you have moo, a big what? Cow, right? That's not what we're reading about. It's just an example. So it's going to give you everything in order, right? I'm going to back to page 188. He says here, Ma'na budu salahi. All right. What is meant by, on page 187, we can go back. Bay'u thamari qabla an yabdu salahuhu. Buying or selling fruits before their benefit, their ripeness is evident. Before it's plain that they're ready to be consumed. ويسمى أيضا بالمخاضرة كما ورد في بعض النصوص. So he talks about synonyms for it, and they mention many different ahadith. What's meant by that? All right, let's get to the fiqh rulings now. He says, Ma'na budu salah. What's meant by ripening, or the benefit is evident? فسر الفقهاء بدو الصلاح بمعان شتى. فالحنفية قالوا في تفسيره أن تؤمن العاهة والفساد. وإن كان بعضهم كالكرلاني فسره بأن تصلح الثمرة لتناول بني آدم وعلف الدواب. Very interesting now, guys. He talks about the meaning of the fruit being ripe. The meaning of the fruit's benefit being evident. And before he gets into what it means, he or they, this is very important for the student of knowledge's development now. What do the fuqaha say concerning these definitions? I.e., the schools of thought differ on the definition of terms, just like they differ on the rulings of those different things. So you may be Shafi'i, and you define placing the hands, whatever the case may be. What's meant by placing the hands? A Hanafi comes along and says, we don't even understand the term holding the hands like you do. So forget the ruling, where do the hands go? They differ on the actual definition of wad on yadayn, mathalan. You guys with me or not? Everybody understand this? Is that they differ on the definition of certain terms and concepts, let alone on the actual rulings. You guys with me? They differ on the what? On the definition of it. So if the fuqaha, if they differ on these different definitions, of course they're going to differ on the rulings. So this is an example and a manifestation of why the different scholars disagree. Asbabul khilaf. Why is there even a difference of opinion in this issue and the hadith is clear, or the ayah is clear, etc. Everybody clear on this? So the study of fiqh isn't some simplistic type of thing for anybody to just come along and say this, that, this, and that. Studying fiqh, it requires intelligence. It requires aql. You got to be smart enough to understand, to separate, and to put together. And of course, the study of fiqh, it requires tarbiyah, that you sit at a teacher's feet for years. And then it studies your own due diligence, reading and studying and writing things down, coming across problems and asking your teachers about them. And it requires maturity. And it requires lack of haste. And it's jumping, bid'ah, haram, oh, you're Hanafi, this is batil, so on and so forth. Slow down, pump your brakes. Hanbalis, Shafi'is, Malikis, these different schools, they differ on different things. And let alone scholars outside of these four schools. Before the four imams, during their era, and what? After. All right? So seeking knowledge is a lifelong mission. Do not rush in head first to be hasty, speaking negatively about other people. Even if you feel differently. Me, Amjad, I don't agree with you on this issue. But if you're speaking with knowledge, if you're speaking with precedence, I respect you. Even though we don't what? We don't agree. But that doesn't mean that I have to spit on you and call you bad names and foul names. We can respectfully agree on a scholastic what? Scholastic issue. And me and Amjad, if we differ on something, I said, come over to the masjid, come to my house, or you invite me to your center. We sit down with the books and we can what? What can we do, Amjad? We can discuss it. We can sit down, with or without the books. We can discuss it. Respectfully. Akhi, well, here, volume 17, kada. No, well, actually, look at that. The world will be a better place if imams and students of knowledge, jazakallahu khairan, barakallahu fikum, if they would do that. And at the end of the day, we haven't reached a conclusion. I'm stubborn on my opinion. Amjad, he doesn't agree. At least we benefited from the research. And I can respect him. Imam Amjad at this masjid, mashallah, he's a learned brother. Do I agree with everything he says and does? No. But that isn't a requirement. Rather, that's a condition that's been placed for different political reasons to keep the Muslims splintered, to keep the Muslims split up. For me and you to have basic respect for each other, basic cooperation with each other, basic knowing, salam alaikum, you come over, drink tea, you come to my masjid, I come to your masjid, we have to agree on everything. We have to see eye to eye. That's made up. And the reason why those rules have been made up for political ends or political means. That's a fact. Those who know about it, and those who don't know about it, they'll never know about it. Sheikh Fulan said this, these brothers said that. I read this narration, the Salaf lived over 1,000 years ago, 1,200, 1,300 years ago. How different was things then from now? Living in a non-Muslim country, a non-Muslim land. We are minorities. We are lacking in politics, lacking in finances, lacking in strength, lacking in organization. The greater need for us to do what? Work with each other. And try our best to minimize and to settle our differences. فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. If and when you differ on something, take it back to Allah and His Messenger. How can we take it back to Allah and His Messenger when I'm cursing at you, Amjad, you call me bad names, and you're warning from me and I'm warning from you? How can we take it back to the Kitab and Sunnah? And if it's an issue over interpretation, if it's an issue of what the verse means, then let's take it back what? Take it back to the books. Let's deal with it scholastically. And if and when we still differ, Jazakallah khairan. May Allah bless you. I enjoyed my time. I benefited. We don't have to argue over this. It's clear you're not going to see what I see. And that's the end of the story. Wallahu ta'ala alam. So, he talks about the definition of the ripeness and the benefit of these fruits becoming evident. Okay? Some Hanafi scholars, they say, and tu'man al-ahatu wal-fasad, is that nothing can happen or go wrong with these fruits. They're at a stage in which they're good. And other scholars, they say, is for the fruits to be consumed by humans and animals. Once they're consumed by humans and animals, that's when it's ripe enough to sell. والمالكية فسروه تفسيرا مختلفا نسبيا فهو في التمر أن يحمر ويصفر ويزهو وفي العنب أن يسود وتبدو الحلاوة فيه وفي غيرهما من الثمار حصول الحلاوة وفي الخس والعصفر أن ينتفع إلى آخره. The Malikis have a little different twist. They say that it depends on the fruit. So when we talk about dates, for dates to become red, yellow, for dates to become, brown, auburn, for their color to come in. And as far as grapes, then yes, wed, for the grapes to darken, to become black, literal translation. And obviously it doesn't apply to all grapes. Some grapes are what? Alright, well. But obviously, and this goes to show you that the fiqh is going to be based off of a person's land. Certain definitions, certain things will be based off of your area. So those Maliki scholars, Allahu Alam, if they had access to white grapes. But in most cases, the grapes that they had were the dark, rich purple ones, right? The really dark ones. You get the point? Because the white grape doesn't become dark, right? He says, so grapes, they have to darken, and they have to become sweet. It's tasty. It isn't bitter anymore. And other types of fruits, etc. وأرجع الشافعية بدو الصلاح في الثمن وغيره كالزرع إلى ظهور مبادئ النضج والحلاوة فيما لا يتلون منه. And as far as the Shafi'is, then they say fruits that take on colors have a ruling, and fruits that don't take on colors have a different ruling with regards to their definition. Okay, so the sweetness of the fruit, the ripeness of the fruit, and obviously how soft or how hard the piece of fruit is, the smell, how easy it is to pull the stem off the pineapple, right? Can you easily open up the banana? Different types of fruit, they give telltale signs of when they're what?
Right.
When they're ripe. He says, as far as fruits that do not, as far as the fruits that do take on color, يأخذ بالحمرة أو السواد أو الصفرة, red, yellow, etc. All right. خيرا إن شاء الله تعالى. Now, he then says here, ووضع الحنابلة هذا الضابط ما كان من الثمرة يتغير لونه عند صلاحه كثمرة النخل والعنب الأسود طيب, etc. And then he mentions what the Hanbalis say, right? Okay, and obviously, as we've said before, many Islamic rulings cannot be understood without knowledge of worldly matters. Many Islamic rulings, there's a qaida now, there's a rule for sure. Many Islamic rulings cannot be understood properly unless you have the necessary knowledge of the dunya. How about that now? And many spiritual affairs cannot be understood without the what? The worldly affairs. Huh? If you don't know the basics of agriculture and these different types of fruits and when they ripen in the seasons, you're going to make an error in the Islamic application. Correct or incorrect? If you know the basics of the animals, the difference in a sheep and a goat, the age, the size of male, female, a cow, a bull, etc., 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 you're going to make a what? A mistake. And the thing this ruling applies to finding the Qibla. How do you know which way north is? Where's the North Star? What is a compass? What makes a compass move? How do you calibrate a compass? Right? When does a child reach bulugh? When did they become an adult in Islam? Adam's apple? Hair? Voice? What declares a person to be in puberty? You have to have knowledge of the anatomy. Back at that, right? Khairan inshallah. All right. What is the ruling on this? He says, جمهور الفقهاء بوجه عام على أن بيع الثمر قبل بدو صلاحه غير جائز ولا صحيح. قال ابن المنذر أجمع أهل العلم على القول بجملة هذا الحديث ومع ذلك فقد فصلوا فيه القول تبعا لتقييد العقد بشرط وإطلاقه ولا يخلو بيع الثمرة من هذه الأحوال. So he then goes on to explain what's the ruling. The scholars generally agree that it's impermissible with exceptions. Number one, الأولى أن يبيعها قبل الظهور والبروز أي قبل انفراك الزهر عنها وانعقادها ثمرة فهذا البيع لا يصح اتفاقا. The first condition is selling the fruits before they even come into being of fruit, germinate or whatever the case may be. It's not even, from seed or bud or whatever to an actual fruit. So that's totally impermissible, right? الثانية, number two, أن يبيعها بعد الظهور قبل بدو الصلاح بشرط الترك والتبقية على الشجر حتى تنضج فلا يصح هذا البيع إجماعا لأنه شرط لا يقتضيه العقد والشغل ملك الغير أو هو صفقة في صفقة أو هو عيارة أو إجارة في بيع وعلله ابن قدامة بالنهي عنه في الحديث المذكور والنهي يقتضي الفساد. Number two is to sell the fruits after they've developed. They're actually fruits now, but for sure they aren't ripe. There's no doubt they aren't ripe, but you can actually see it's a fruit, a plum tree, an apple tree, an orange tree, etc. It's not just a little small leaf or bud, it's actual what? It's actual orange, it's actual apple, all right? All right, for a person to make a condition, I'll buy the fruits before they ripen, and I'll just let them sit there until they become ripened. It's unlawful, all right? الثالثة أن يبيعها بعد الظهور قبل بدو الصلاح بشرط القطع في الحال فهذا البيع صحيح بالإجماع ولا خلاف في جوازه. The third condition or situation or scenario is to sell them, to buy them after they've become fruit, before they're sweet, with the condition of taking them right on the spot. Taking them what? Right on the spot, as we've explained. All right, that's number three. It then goes on to say, or he goes on to explain other issues with regards to غير أن الفقهاء قيدوا هذا الحكم وهو جواز بيع ثمرة بعد بدو صلاحها بشرط القطع في الحال وقيود بعضها متفق عليه وبعضها انفرد به فريق من الفقهاء نشير إليها فيما يلي. So that third scenario, who can repeat the scenario to me? I go to the farm and I'm looking for dates. When is it lawful for me to buy the dates? I explained it.
When it's reached the state.
First and foremost, there are dates in the tree, hanging from the tree. Correct? You with me or not?
No.
There are dates what?
In the tree.
Clearly. Step number two.
Before they reach.
But they're not ripe.
Yeah.
They aren't ripe. Whether they're green, halfway brown, they aren't what? But I can actually pull the date down and it'll be a little crunchy, a little hard. It's a date, but it isn't what?
Right.
It isn't ripe. Step number three, Idris.
That's the one I need help on.
Cut it down.
Immediately. Like the guy, right? Climb up the tree, cut it down, kilo, 2 kilos, 5 kilos, whatever. I can walk away with those unripened dates, but with some guidelines. Some of those guidelines are agreed upon, and other guidelines, one school, one imam said without another. The first one, الشرط الأول أن يكون الثمر منتفعا به فالحنفية في الأصح من مذهبهم وكذا المالكية على إطلاق الانتفاع به وصرح الحنفية بشمول الانتفاع بما هو في الحال أو في الزمان الثاني وهو المآل أو في الثاني الحالي كما يعبرون. All right, so the first is for the fruits to be benefited from. Someone's going to eat these dates. I'm going to use them for a recipe as ingredients, etc. Right? And obviously some fruits may have to be purchased in that state in order for you to travel with them, ship them, and for them to be fresh in the perfect state when they reach you or when you get home. Everybody clear on this? Or there may be certain fruits that some people like sour, like mangoes, right? Some people enjoy what? Mangoes that aren't that sweet. They buy them a little prematurely. Some people may want bananas a little, not as soft and mushy or whatever the case may be. I'm making a cake, I'm making some bread, I'm making this, in which I need them to be a little, You guys with me or not? Huh?
No.
Or a person may use those fruits which aren't ripened to feed one of his pets or something else, an animal. All right. There's too much sugar will mess up my diabetes. Methadone, as an example. You guys with me or not? All right. So that's the first condition. Number two, the second guideline. الشرط الثاني أن يحتاج إليه المتبايعان أو أحدهما. For one of the two to be in need. I need to get rid of this stuff. I got more trees coming or planting. I need to make space on my farm. Or the person says, I don't have time to come back. I'm leaving, I'm traveling. I need to take what I can right now. Or like I said, in certain dishes and recipes, you may need the fruit before it's actually right. All right. Number three, he says, الشرط الثالث أن لا يكثر ذلك بين الناس ولا يتمايل عليه أو ولا يتمايل. نعم. The third condition is this shouldn't be all the time. And we should people just start doing this every single instance. Instead of waiting, instead of being patient like they're supposed to, gimme. It shouldn't be like that. Here and there. الشرط الرابع نص عليه الحنابلة وأن لا يكون ما بيع قبل بدو صلاحه مشاعا بأن يشتري نصف الثمرة قبل بدو صلاحها مشاعا بشرط القطع إلى آخره. To the end of that discussion, which is a very long discussion. I've given you access to the knowledge. You don't have to take it from me anymore. You read it, you study it, you dive deeper into it yourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Sheikh, those are the last 4 points you mentioned.
And before we stop, minus Sheikh F1 Hamza, you don't have to cut it yet. Do these rulings, pertain to vegetables? Because all we mentioned was fruits.
No.
No? What you say, Ali? Mamoon?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
طيب. Food for thought. I didn't say yes or no. Further shit.
These 4